Hi, guys. This is your favorite pseudo intellectual, Lord Hellespont the Fifth, coming to you live to present the full unboxing of the two new watches that I've added to my collection. Um, I'm wearing today one of them right here, the Reverso Grande. I'm wearing it on a sapphire blue strap that I just acquired, which looks beautiful. In inside or in dark, it's almost like a black, but in sunlight, it really plays off beautifully with those heat blued hands of the Reverso. Um, Thank you, Tim, and thanks for joining. If you like what I'm producing here, if you like the content that I'm creating, please feel free to like and subscribe and tell your friends. As you might know, in the US, today we are celebrating George Washington's birthday and celebrating also the President's Day. And I'll have another live stream later today where I will be presenting this beautiful book uh, by Davide Parmigiani, 100 Fabulous Day Dates. And it's mostly examples that he has had in his stock. So we'll talk about the model. We'll talk about the ultimate Rolex model, what was once the jewel on Rolex's crown, and think about its present and the future as well. And I will also show you a few examples from the earlier book that I've presented you, Rolex 3621 watches, where you can find such gorgeous examples as this 4-digit day date with the OG Tiffany dial. Who would have thought? An 1803 with a factory Tiffany dial. So later in the day, we'll have that live stream where we'll talk about the Rolex day date on the President's Day and think a little bit about some of the historic examples and think also about the place of the day date of the so-called um, presidential watch in the current Rolex lineup, where the Daytona seems to have taken its place. Welcome, Ian, my friend. It's nice to see you, and thank you for the nice words on the watch. So let's just start with the Reverso, right? Which I actually got almost by pure chance. I've mentioned before that Reverso was always a model that I admired from far, and I only started to look into owning a Reverso in a serious way after I started watching Archie in 2015. Um, I always admired his Grand Date, um, and how can you not, right? It's really the watch that he owned for the longest time. I think he owned it for about 10 years consecutively. No other watch in his collection holds that honor. But I never quite knew whether a Reverso was for me, and whether that particular model was for me before I started watching Archie, and before I heard the enthusiasm and the passion and just the sheer admiration he has when talking about this particular model. So I went out and tried all sorts of models. some from the current lineup, and this was already a few years back. Some from the more historical examples. Um, I quickly realized that the classic or classique was not really for me. Uh, Not in the traditional size, not in the medium size. I quickly realized that it has to be something encased in Grande, um, and that's an entire lineup, right? That's one of the beautiful things about the Reverso, even if it can be recognized as the iconic watch of Jaeger Le-Coultre as a brand. It comes in so many different shapes and sizes, and since the 60th anniversary of the model in 91, it also comes with a variety of complications as well, where the world is your oyster, right? Especially if you're looking at the examples in steel and they're not necessarily limited editions, you can get one at a very, very reasonable um, price point. So I was able to try a few of them and realize that I would be happy to get any one of them in the Grande case. The Grand Date model is in what they call XGT, so it's a little larger, in fact, and not only thicker because of the movement than the usual large case. Nevertheless, I found out that it fits really well on my wrist. And recently I decided, yeah, why not actually try to get a nice example of this watch? And already that I like dealing in person. I like making big purchases in person. But with the Reverso, that was a little harder. I scoured some of the, pardon me, well-known and lesser-known dealers in Southern California. I looked at every single jewelry shop that came my way, but a lot of them mostly focus on Rolex and some hyped up models from other well-known brands, and it's harder to find a Reverso in the secondary market than the more common Rolex sports models. So I actually came across a very beat up example that was priced just right on eBay. Um, but I wasn't quite happy with it. And I talked about this too. It was also on the steel bracelet, and somehow that just uh, doesn't jive. It just doesn't really fit the image of the Reverso I have on my mind. But if that was the model that I could get, and if that was the deal that I would get, I was gonna go with it, and I was gonna send it in to JLC for a full service, including a little bit of polish and have it put on a leather strap, so on and so forth. But then I came across another example that was exactly what I wanted. That was a full set. It came on this beautiful leather strap that looked brand spanking new. And it was sold by one of these giant international conglomerates. And it was, at least eBay told me that the watch was in Singapore, which I couldn't quite make sense of, but it turns out that they also have a branch in Singapore. So that same amount that I was happy to pay for the beaten up example, I just put in as a lowball offer for this one that was in great condition and that came with box and papers. And they accepted the offer. So I was very happy with it. I was expecting, since the watch was in Singapore, I was expecting maybe I will have to pay some customs. I was kind of reconciling myself with the idea, but they told me, hey, you don't have to worry about that. We actually get it shipped to our headquarters here in the US. We take care of the customs and any potential duties attached to that, and we'll ship it to you from here, and you'll have your watch in no time. And I was just over the moon with it. And here is the full set that I have. Let's actually just start with the strap that came with the watch, which is an original Jaeger Le-Coultre strap in matte alligator. It's produced by the French proprietor Camille Fournet. So it's a double-sided alligator strap that fits exactly to the 20 millimeter lug width that the Reverso has. And it comes as they used to come with the single fold déployant buckle with the minimalist buckle that they have here. The later examples had the whole brand logo integrated into that buckle design. And to make it a little easier to change straps, they also have these open lip design for the pins where you can just pull them out with the help of a fingernail. So I was very happy with this. I was very happy that it was actually a new strap. And turns out that that was completely normal, because I actually went to the JLC boutique here, and they were very helpful and told me, yeah, we can look into it and we can see the service history. And it turns out that the watch actually was serviced and returned to the original owner in January. So apparently at this price point, I get a full set of a watch that was serviced a month ago by the manufacturer and came back on a fresh new strap and was ready to use for me. So I got extremely lucky, and I was happy to get that particular example that was completely beat up and ready to eat the service costs myself. So the watch arrived with this box. You might be familiar with it as well, because this is the box that Archie has as part of his full set. It has this beautiful shade of blue that you can be perhaps familiar with from the famous Scotch blend Johnny Walker Blue Label. I think it also is reminiscent of the label for Glenlivet 18, which is the same shade of blue. And what was more obvious, and what I haven't really thought about before, it also plays off beautifully with the kiln-fired heat-blued hands on the dial, and the blue screws that are produced with the same method that adorn the movement, which is visible on the back. And I will show you that momentarily as well. So we open the outer box. And we have the full booklets here on the Reverso model. We have the warranty booklet. We have the 2-year warranty from the conglomerate. We have the warranty certificate for the model that for one reason or another was not filled out properly, but it has the reference number and the serial number right below, which I'm covering up, but which starts right here, as you can see. And then we come finally to the box that is in the same color and that has the Jaeger Le-Coultre name right there, inlaid. And we have that cleaning cloth, basically, that covers the watch. Archie was not quite happy with it since it impedes presentation. But I think it's a nice little detail that it can wrap around like that to both protect the watch, and if you actually want to lift the inner case, you can remove it and use it as a sort of cleaning cloth as well. Of course, I would rather keep it pristine because same way with the inside of the case, it's in this cream color that I can imagine gets dirty pretty fast, which is unavoidable, but I'm not gonna expedite that process by using it as an actual cleaning cloth. I can already see what it might lead to. Yes, apparently the watch was originally bought from Sincere Watch Limited in Singapore, which is an authorized dealer in Singapore for Richemont luxury. So there we are. But that is not all, actually, because the watch itself was encased in a nice travel pouch, or travel case, I should say. And I'm guessing that this was given by the service center after that January service the watch received. It has this Alcantara detail here compared with the texture. And when I open it, look who is in here. This is the other watch, of course, that I acquired in this particular round. The Coke, the fifth as the fifth in Lord Hellespont the Fifth. So let's talk about a little bit about the Coke. This one also came as a full set, and maybe as more of a full set than the Reverso. As you can see, it's in a very good condition, with the tritium lume plots turning into a kind of off-white eggshell kind of color. The case is pretty good. The bracelet has very little stretch, quite a bit of life left in it. Um, Let me pull a little bit of Marcella and double up on these Wist watches. And I also love the way that at least the red part of the bezel has aged. The black part also has matted out and kind of has this false glint of maybe like a navy blue in certain light, which I don't mind, even though I prefer the Coke bezel over the Pepsi. I think it's a nice little detail. Um, this one I actually got from a jeweler in San Diego who specializes in Rolex full sets. Um, I had a trip scheduled to San Diego, and I was planning as part of that trip, or rather, at the end of that trip, I was planning to stop by at this other jeweler who had quite a large selection of 16710s and a couple of 16760s as well. And but by the way, I haven't been following the chat too closely, but I thank you all for the nice words. I do think that I was pretty lucky. I'm not gonna dispense all these cliches about there's no such thing as luck and you create your own luck and everything. But I will say this, that when I buy watches, I rarely go out and buy things on a whim. It's usually preceded by months and months, if not years, of thinking and of looking at examples online and in person, and of course, putting some money aside and trying to work out the deal. And when it's not the watch, not the exact watch that I want, and yes, there are certain compromises that I'm willing to make. But when it's not the exact watch that I want, at whatever I'm willing to part with in terms of cash, I just don't buy it. So I usually wait until the moment when I get an example that's almost perfect and that I can actually afford. And with time, I learned to look for deals rather than steals, which was my older mentality, which helped me establish my collection, but also caused me to miss out on some great deals because I was still haggling for, a few $100s here and a few $100s there, and I lost out on some nice watches and maybe even some rare and very interesting examples. So I'm just looking through the chat a little bit. Pavel says, your little club should have matching ascots. Hey, it's Reverso is the signature watch of a very pretentious and vain man, no doubt. But if it's good enough for such cultural luminaries as King Edward VIII, Bruce Wayne, and Archibald Chesterfield III, it should be good enough for you. Diego says, thanks, Lord, switching back to the Coke bezel when I get home, FMD. I think you were just looking for a reason. I know you love switching out those bezels, especially on live streams. Pavel says, that is a very Lord watch. Indeed, for whatever reason, I think it's usually the personalization aspect. This watch has a very high and maybe disproportionate appeal among the aristocracy and even royalty. But yeah, again, I'm very pretentious and vain in general, so I think it fits with the theme. Yeah, Ian says, Diego, there was a good tutorial on Tim's stream on how to change a Rolex bezel. Tim, thank you for your kind words. Diego says, adopting and adapting Jamie's phrase, reverso is king. Jay Sykes, yes, find a fair deal is the goal. Deals of the century are very hard to come by, if not impossible. You're absolutely right, Jay. And it's becoming more and more difficult in this current market, especially if you're looking for a Rolex. You'll have to settle. You'll have to part with your ideas of finding a steal. So let's come back to this watch. So I was looking at a few examples at another jeweler in San Diego. I wanted to examine them up close, and I wanted to strike a deal in person. And I actually took the train because I just love train as a form of travel. There's some romanticism attached to it, I know, but I also find it just a very relaxing way because you don't have to do any of the driving. No traffic, no bumpy roads, and you can just sit back and work or do some pleasant reading. And in this particular on this particular trip, on this particular occasion, before I started working on the computer, I said, okay, let me check out a few things so I have a better sense of the price points and whatever else is available before I step into this jeweler. And I looked at eBay first, and the very last thing that was listed, the most recent listing, was actually by a San Diego jeweler and another jeweler. And it was this beautiful full set. It was listed a little higher than what I was willing to pay. But I was really intrigued because the watch looked like it was in a great condition, which is what I care about the most. Papers are usually my next concern, and everything else for me is just the cherry on top. I obviously don't mind getting a full set if I can get it at a fair deal, right? I'm willing to pay a little bit of a premium because I know for a lot of people, it is something they look for. And if I ever have to put this watch on sale, if I ever have to get rid of it, having it as a full set certainly adds to the resale value. So it comes in the correct outer box, which is a little banged up and damaged, of course, as it should be, by the way. Oops, as it should be. That's the other thing that I want to say, and this is something to be on the lookout for all kinds of things you can get on the secondary market, in the pre-owned market, in the vintage market, whatever you want to say. If certain things look too good to be true, just as the way we talk about the deals, it is too good to be true. If you find something that's pristine, new old stock, all stickered up, in an impeccable, undamaged outer box, I can't trust it, right? Unless it comes from a very reputable seller, maybe like from one of these famous auction houses. I just can't really trust it. So I like the fact actually that the box is a little beat up, because it should be for a watch from 1997, right? For a 25-year-old watch, the presentation can't be impeccable. So it has the Rolex and Rolex Cellini cleaning cloth. It has the leather wallet that comes with the little calendar, 98, 99, even though the watch itself is from 97. Again, one of those little details that are completely normal, right? I think I would be more suspicious if it was just 97, 98, because it was a 97 watch, 97 serial bought in year 98. No, it was bought at 98, maybe towards, I think it's April 98. We'll see the warranty card in a little bit. But it makes total sense that it would be presented with a calendar that would actually be useful for a year and a half rather than just half a year. So it has this pouch where you have everything. It's a U serial, which places it right at that year 97. And we know, as with most things Rolex, that you can never be sure. It's not final. But that's the guess. This is the warranty card, which we'll take a closer look. Wrist measurement tool, the factory service booklet, the larger factory service booklet, the Rolex Oyster booklet, and Rolex GMT-Master booklet. It is a one-owner watch. I am the second owner of this watch. It was sold first to a gentleman in Oklahoma City by Paco's Jewelers, which no longer exists, but I was able to locate some information about a jeweler with the last name Paco's who was resident in Oklahoma. I got the watch. GB asks, you got that Coke for 4 figures. I wish. As I talked about the deal before, it was less than what the jeweler asked for and more than what I was willing to pay. But I can tell you this, I got a full set that is cheaper than what a lot of wheelers and dealers and gray market dealers and vintage specialists are selling these watches for naked without even the papers. So it wasn't 4 figures. It was low to mid 5 figures, let's say, low to mid tens, put it that way. But yes, again, if one of you wants to deal with this particular jeweler, whom I really liked, who treated me really well, and who served me Persian tea and candies, and in fact gifted me that red book of Rolex that I presented on as part of this deal. And it just feels great for a change, right? Especially in this day and age where you get treated like shite for wanting to spend your hard-earned money on a luxury product. And this is not just limited to watches, right? This is the way that a lot of these multinational conglomerates treat their customers these days. And it sours the whole experience. And for once, it was nice to deal with someone who treated you well, who respected you as a human being, and who looked at you as something more than a dollar sign. So if any one of you wants to email me at that Gmail address associated with the PayPal account, I can certainly direct you to that jeweler. Um, and if you're willing to throw a donation for the channel through PayPal, I can even help you work out a deal, because I was born a wheeler and dealer, and I don't need to link up and associate with today's gray market dealers to become a wheeler and dealer and a haggler myself. Um, I think, GB, that may have been the confusion, because we were talking about the two watches at the same time on Archie's stream. I got the Reverso for 6,500. So maybe someone kind of wrapped it all together as a story. That was a great deal as well. You might even call it a steal, since it's in an impeccable condition right out of service. But it is what it is. Aussie expat, I just finished going through the Rolex Red Book. Now have to look up your comments on it. I was not impressed. Yes, I can say a few more words. I was Look, by and large, I'm trying to be very gentle in this channel towards the material and towards the authors that I review. If I review something, it probably means it's acceptable. I can recommend it. But with this one, I made a certain caveat, right? If you think you know about the brand, and if you think you know about the history of the brand and about the models, and if you think you know a thing or two about vintage collecting, this book is probably not for you. If you are a beginner or even an intermediate kind of collector, you can find some useful information, but the book mostly makes up for what it is not, for being a material object with glossy, high-quality visuals. It's one handy presentation of all this material that you can find pretty easily on the internet, but here you have it in the company of some detailed and striking and engaging photographs, and some listicles and very easy to digest information. So I would recommend it as a gift to perhaps a young hobbyist and enthusiast, and also as a kind of coffee table book and conversation piece if you are trying to share some of your passion to someone who is not really interested in wristwatches, or who is not at all interested in collecting watches of any kind, who knows the brand name Rolex but doesn't really know anything about Rolex watches. It's a book that's relatable to that sort of audience. For anyone who spends too much time online talking about watches, thinking about watches, watching like highly produced videos and sometimes these sorts of silly live streams about watches, you'll be deflated. It's not the greatest book. I would much rather direct you to something like Rolex 3621 watches by Kesaharu Imai, which actually has all the varieties of these historic models, and sometimes with not only thumbnails but detailed pictures where you can kind of imprint on your mind this platonic ideal of a given reference model, so you know exactly what to look for in terms of that ideal and in terms of the different iterations of the same model when you go out on the vintage market to make a purchase of your own. GB Vol says, I don't do business with people with a sleeve of tattoos. No, no tattoos on this body, my man. So even though, again, I look very, very trashy with both of the watches on my wrist, but I just want to enjoy this moment as we speak. Floodland, share some wheel and deal techniques, please. Absolutely. And I think I will save that to the collective conversation. I will just share the link. If anyone wants to jump on, I would appreciate it. And it's a nice way to talk about some of these experiences and some of the techniques that I have to walk out with the piece that I want. If someone wants to join me, I think that's a better way of going through those steps. But if not, that's also fine. Since Flood asked so nicely and so kindly, I'm not gonna say no. I'm happy to talk about it. But if someone would like to join, Aussie, yes, I mentioned this. I found some level of inaccuracy, even with my limited knowledge, on almost every page. I did mention this. I said not only does it include, very general information that you can find in any given corner of the internet, but a lot of times you would be able to correct that information if you have informed yourself accordingly. But yeah, it is a very, very entry level book. With any of the predictions that it makes about the vintage market, it's already outdated, especially in terms of the pricing they share. Of course, we almost exist in a different universe now in year 2022 when it comes to the secondary market in Rolex wristwatches compared to 2015 when the book was originally published in Danish. Yes, if anyone would like to jump on, again, I've shared the link, but I will start just talking about some of the things that you should be mindful of when trying to make a deal on a wristwatch. I have mentioned that I like dealing in person. All right, Tim is here.
Hey, Lord.
My beloved co-host. Welcome back to the Tim Wright channel.
Hey, man. I mean, I gave it a couple of minutes. Hopefully, we'll get you people. We'll get people brave enough to join Lord on his after shows soon enough. But in the meantime, I'm glad
I
to
do
help out
appreciate
a fellow YouTuber. Actually,
I
chilling
do
me.
appreciate it.
Hey, no
Yeah,
problem.
so I was talking about wheeling and dealing, but
Yes.
I was also wondering if you had anything on your mind that you would like to talk about.
Hey, let's talk about wheeling dealing because, as you know, I'm trying to get into the whole wheeling dealing business, and I gotta tell you, man, it's hard. It's one of the hardest things I've ever I've ever tried to do, man. When somebody offered me a Daytona, I was like, oh my god, I have no idea what I'm doing.
Right.
Yeah,
To resell.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
Yeah.
Because
Look,
there's so many of them, right? You have to know what is each one worth because there's hundred and there's every year's model is worth a little bit different amount, and how do you know that it's actually real? Like, if I didn't have to sell, I'll tell you this, it's much different until there's pressure to actually Okay, you
course.
have to actually, you have to do it.
Selling your watch is one thing, but selling a piece that someone else consigns with you, that's another thing altogether. And I will actually let's talk about the selling part
Mm-hmm.
a little later, because I think Flood initially asked the question as, what do you do to negotiate as a buyer?
Yeah.
And this is something you have to um, inform yourself as well if you want to become a seller, because there are sharks like me out there who will either waste your time
Yeah.
or haggle your price down to something where your profit becomes a very slim margin,
Mm-hmm.
or just walk out on you because they're just too picky. I've done
Yeah.
that with a couple of dealers. I'm sure they would not want to deal with me ever again. But when it clicks, it clicks.
Mm.
And the biggest bargaining chip that you have in your hand as a buyer
Mm-hmm.
is your ability to walk away.
Sure.
Nothing can beat that.
Sure.
So as I said, be patient. Find ways of spending your time, remaining patient and passionate and knowledgeable about the model that you want to purchase.
Yes.
Um, because at the end of the day, there's nothing perfect out there in the secondary market, especially.
Yeah.
There's no perfect deal. You have to make certain compromises in terms of what you're willing to pay, but
Mm-hmm.
within limits.
Yeah. Like I'm thinking, like when if you're buying, you have to know exactly what it is that you're buying, because I remember there was just even from like Archie's experience, right?
Right.
Someone, he was selling a piece and someone would come to him and say, "Hey, there's another one here that's like much cheaper. Why is yours so expensive?" And when Archie looked up what this guy was comparing it to, it was a completely different model,
Right.
right? And I think if you because if you make that mistake of when you try to there's a seller and you tell him, hey, this watch should be much cheaper because of this other one, and you
Mhm.
make a mistake of comparing it to a completely different thing, you're gonna look like a fucking jackass. Okay,
Right.
so I think you really have to know what the hell that you're buying, and when you're comparing it, you have to be very educated on the model that you're buying, so that you're not comparing it to something else from completely different year.
Right. Um,
And
and
if
and
you know, you can, if you show the seller that you know what it is that you're looking at, I think that proves to them, well, you know what, maybe I priced it incorrect, because some of these sellers, they could be a little bit lazy. They could kind of price it a little bit higher because they didn't want to spend the extra time, you know, researching everything about
I
the
mean,
piece.
it's not always laziness. It's also partly wishful thinking, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Especially current environment,
Mm-hmm.
you might want to say, well, let's see, maybe I can get this sort of money, and with the right buyer, you might. But
Mm-hmm.
like you said, you need to think about your presentation, and from the perspective of the buyer, and that's why I prefer a personal interaction.
Yeah.
You can come across with all your knowledge. You can talk about some other pieces in your collection. You can talk about your earlier experience of buying, or even about failed deals and
Yeah.
what left you uh, what left you wanting in that particular transaction that didn't go through. So that's the second one, and I think you brought up this point really well. Sometimes you have to be as knowledgeable as some of these sellers out there, and in the age of YouTube, that's not that hard.
Yeah.
So as long as you keep informed, as long as you know what's out there and how they should be priced. Look, we can be wishful thinkers as buyers as well,
Yeah.
right? That's why I discovered in some deals, like maybe I'm asking too much of a discount, but I know most secondary sellers
Mm.
do price things at a very higher margin, and they are usually willing to shave that price down at
Mm-hmm.
least by a couple of hundreds, if not up to 10%. So yeah, if you're not, let's say something is priced at 10K,
Yeah.
don't go in there and try to get it for 7,500,
Yeah.
because most traditional vintage watch dealers, they don't mark things up to that uh, exorbitant level where it's unrealistic. They do have a margin, they do have a large margin, but they're not going to sell you a watch just because you bring in cash at half the price.
Also, like, when I was in Miami, right, I spoke to a lot of these gray market dealers, right, and they were basically kind of, they had these conversations, and they kind of said, like, they make most of their money on the purchases when they buy the watch, right? This is what they're looking for, to get it as cheap as possible. When they're selling it, they're not obviously they have to sell it over what
Mhm.
they purchased it. As
Of
long as
course.
they can sell it over the purchase, that's good. Also, like, if they're not in a hurry to sell the piece, they, like Rolexes, that you can get you're not gonna get too much discount, because Rolexes, they keep going up in price,
Mhm.
and they're not really like. I think the best way to deal with buying a Rolex to get a discount is just asking, what's the best price that you can give me,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Just
you
be
can do
polite. Yeah, what's the best price? What is the best price
that. I
in the
think,
current market?
yeah, flood puts it in the form of a question, but I think that
Mm-hmm.
that should really be statement, right? You have
Yeah,
to be completely cool.
yeah,
In fact, you have to be meek. You have to be very gentle and excessively kind,
yeah,
right? The kind of behavior that people associate in the US with the so-called old world manners.
100%.
No matter how much money you have, how much disposable cash you have to at least pretend, say, and it's for everyone, there's a grain of truth in that, right? Even people who have a lot of disposable cash and who are very rich
Yeah,
have to put considerable amount of money aside for what a mechanical wristwatch actually is as a material
yeah,
object. So you have to say, look, I mean, this is my collection. This is almost like a missing piece of the puzzle for me. I have been thinking about buying a watch like this for this and that many number of months, or like, for 2 years, 3 years. I've looked at examples. I know they're rising up in price, but this is what I put together, and I have it in cash. I have it on me. I'm
yeah.
ready to deal with you in this way. Cash is always the king. It still
Cash is
is the
king.
king. Even the authorized dealers, uh, not for Rolex, right? But
Mm-hmm.
even the authorized dealers for watches that they can sell you in person, even they are ready and willing to give you larger discounts when you can give them cash, because every single business depends on cash flow.
Yeah,
They can transact in all different ways, but all of that takes sometimes too much time. And cash in hand is always better. So that will help you with a deal so much easier when you can say, okay, you're asking for 10K. Um, Forget about credit cards. Forget about the commissions you might have to pay if you list this on eBay or Chrono.
yeah,
Forget about buyer's remorse. Look, this was my story, right? Because
yeah,
I said I'm a collector. I'm knowledgeable. I'm examining the watch in front of you. I love it. I want this watch. You won't deal with buyer's remorse. You won't deal with someone who tricks you into a deal and turns around to sell it on the secondary market immediately. You will save on the commissions, and you won't have to pay commissions for the credit card company, or wait until the end of the month to get your money. Here is cash in hand, and I will give you, let's say, 8,900 instead of 1,000.
yeah,
Well, he will probably take the calculator in his hand. He will make some real and some pretend calculations, and he will say 95.
mm,
say, "Wow, you know, I mean, that's really hard for me. I really saved up for this, and I'm right at the ends of my budget. Maybe I can give you 9,000,
Hmm.
but otherwise, maybe not." And I had a similar situation with this jeweler, right? I
Hmm.
named the price, he named the price, and I said, okay, maybe I can go up to this. And he
Mm.
came down just a little more, and he was almost meeting me right there. And I said, look, I'm in San Diego for the day. Um, Let me just go take care of my business and maybe get a nice lunch or something. And I'll let you know by the end of the day.
Hmm.
And we actually continued the conversation, and he gave a few restaurant recommendations and everything. And then he said, okay, listen, that maybe I can give it to you at that price. He could have, he could have waited until the end of the day. But
Yeah.
again, that we return to that first negotiation tactic. Let me cool off. I'm not gonna be talked into paying even just a few more $100. I'll go take care of my business. I may or may not return at the end of the day. But if you come to the price that I named just now, we have a deal. Um, and again, none of this was presented in a trickster way.
Hey,
You
what you just said, it just reminded me of when Paul and Spencer, they were negotiating a deal
know,
uh, uh, on a diamond, and they said they named their price. The guy named their price, and they said, "Okay, uh, we'll see what else there is." And they walked away. And when they walked away, they pulled me to a side and they said, "Hey, you have to walk away, okay, so that the seller comes down."
one second. Wired Kings, I'm sorry, I put you on timeout. Next time it will be a ban. One thing that this is a free platform, right? You can say anything. You can insult me, my face. But two things are out of limits: family and outright doxing. So if you dox someone with address, name of the business, everything, I won't tolerate that. So please don't do that again. I know people don't like to be turned down like that, but it's okay. I want to grow this channel, but not at the expense of principles. Um, yes. Sorry,
Yeah.
Tim.
So as I was saying, they kind of they walked away and they said, "Listen, like nobody, the chances that someone else is gonna buy is just so low, and it's really good to walk away, because like if you didn't come down, came to a deal, uh, right away." You give it a couple of hours, and he's gonna think about it. You're gonna think about it, and then you come back and you guys see what happens. But yeah, it's a really good point. You don't have to buy right away. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, that I think that also speaks to being knowledgeable, right? If you know what you're getting, if you know the worth and value of what you're getting, if
Hmm.
you haven't named a crazy stupid price, and
Yeah.
if you haven't genuinely lowballed the seller, chances are that they will come back to you because they can't really sell it at the price they named,
Yeah.
and they might be willing to work out the
And the
deal.
thing is, if they
Or-
don't come down, then chances are that maybe maybe their price is correct, because if they weren't, if they came down, then they know that, listen, he's still making money, he's still making good money. Otherwise, he wouldn't be going down. But if he doesn't, then at least that, well, you know what? that was the best price that he offered me. And listen, if you're buying a watch, chances are it's still gonna go up in value. If it's a Rolex, if it's not, still, I think it's worth taking that cool down period.
Yeah. Um, I mean, again, guys, if you have any more questions, we can talk about more specifics, but we won't that we won't beat a dead horse for minutes and hours on end. So if you want more tips on how to negotiate a deal on this end, we can continue talking. But I do want to say a few things about presenting what you have as a trustworthy salesman, right? And
Yeah.
for some people, I know that um, that doesn't come naturally at all.
Also,
Uh,
if you're buying for yourself, that makes a really big difference than if you're like, because right now in this world, I mean, everyone is a freaking flipper. Everyone is buying. Like, these people going to these stores, they're buying and then they're putting on their WhatsApp group and flipping it for more. So, if you're buying it for your collection, showing proof that, oh well, look, this is my collection. I'm looking to add this, could add a little bit more. Like if a seller knows you're not buying this to make money out of him, because he doesn't want, like, why would he sell you if you're gonna turn around and make like $500 on it? He'd rather make that $500. But if you're
of
buying
course,
it for yourself, he's more likely to give you a discount. Also, if you're a repeat client, that is a huge deal. Because talking to some gray market guys, they're like, listen, we're actually giving huge discounts to people who we already know, that we already know with working business, because they wanna, like, these gray market guys, they want to establish a relationship so
right.
that
And
they can sell you a watch, they can buy a watch from you back.
right.
They want that relationship rather than a quickie one off.
That's what I was gonna say, because since we are also segueing into what it takes to sell some of those watches, even personally,
Yeah.
right? Um, when you establish that sort of relationship with someone, uh, whether you're on the seller end or buyer end, ultimately, when you trust each other, that person will come back to that seller and say, look, I mean, I can list this on eBay. I can try to find someone on Craigslist, Reddit, forum, whatever, and maybe I will make a $1,000 more, or maybe even more. But we have this relationship going. I'll consign it with you. You can sell it for me. I know you will get a good price for it. I know you will make your profit on it too,
Mm-hmm.
but you'll save me a lot of trouble and a lot of headache. And I would rather trust it to a professional and trust it to someone I know personally. And I think
Mm-hmm.
that's gold, in this
Yeah.
sort of relationship for both the seller and the buyer. So one thing I do appreciate as a buyer, in sellers, and I think this is really almost a universal, even if I haven't dealt with this person
Mm-hmm.
before, and we were talking a little bit about this on Marcelo time back and forth with Jay
Mm-hmm.
as well. Um, I prefer someone who lists every authentic detail,
Mm.
right? Tell me, yes, I like hearing that this is a one owner watch, it's unpolished, and it's a full set, and it was serviced once and it comes with I love that.
Mm.
That's the cherry on the cake for me. I would take it if I can get it at a reasonable premium, because I know it also adds to the resale value, and it's
Yeah.
a great presentation for you as a seller as well, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because you can basically create an entire visual with every piece of that set. It's
Mm.
impressive to look at, right? And this jeweler, for example, had that set for a Daytona he was selling,
Yeah.
every single piece, with a Daytona book as an added gift. That's a striking visual.
Wow.
You tell something quite profound about yourself to your buyer beyond the fact that it's a full set. You are saying, this is how I take care of my wares.
Yeah.
This is my attention to detail, and I'm sharing with you with this. Well, we know not all watches are available in full sets. Not all of them are easily acquired that way, and some of
Yeah.
them come at very steep premiums. So if you are just selling me a head on a leather strap, be honest about it and price the watch accordingly. Even if it's a impeccable case, even if it looks original with the factory polish, if you're selling it on a leather strap, don't praise it as if it were a full set.
Yeah.
Um, if you are, if you actually pieced it together, right? You want to sell it as Pepsi, sell it as a Pepsi bezel because they fetch, a little bit of a premium.
Mhm.
But please don't try to fool me.
Mm.
Include the original black bezel as well. Include the original Coke bezel as well.
Yeah.
Doesn't hurt. If you acquired the watch as head only, but as a professional and as a seller, you went through the trouble of matching it with a period correct bracelet, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Don't just say I'm selling the watch as is. Say this watch has an impeccable case that looks almost unpolished, but I can't guarantee it. It also comes with a period correct oyster bracelet.
Mm.
I like that kind of detail. It means I can trust you. It means you are not trying to run tricks on me. It means you are transparent.
Yeah.
Um, I very much appreciate that.
It's also important to also see what else they're selling, and if a seller sells watches that have been like kind of fucked with, if they sell stuff that's modified with like, let's say, diamond bezels that are aftermarket, then this is a dealer that you have to be really careful. Uh, like I would personally recommend people to stay away from the guys that sell everything, the good and the bad, because then how do you know that the good is not just something that they created and trying to push it on you? So that is a really important thing to look out for. I mean, there's people who specialize in selling kind of janky Rolexes
Mhm.
that have just slapped together to look like they're original or anything like. So there's some very careless dealers out there, especially so when I was at that IWJG, right? There are
Mm,
some you can see when there is a seller who sells the right Rolexes,
right.
and when there's someone who is just selling just anything that comes across. At the same time, those guys that sell just anything, they flip through like hundreds of watches. You could find a gem because they're not really carefully checking the stock, and they're overpriced. Their stuff is usually overpriced, like
Mhm.
like the janky stuff is overpriced, and but at the same time, the really valuable stuff would be underpriced because they don't really know the prices.
Mm.
So be very careful. And but if you, I would just recommend just go to someone who specializes in complete sets or just really clean examples.
Yeah, if that's what you want, exactly. Again, as long as you know what you're getting,
Mm-hmm.
I don't mind. I don't mind, right? For the right deal, I can make certain compromises. And for me, again, because I'm actually interested in the watches,
Mm-hmm.
I want a watch in great condition, undamaged dial, sharp case, and ideally with papers. Everything else for me, I can part with it. It doesn't have to be part of that, a part of the deal.
Yeah.
But I know certain people really appreciate box and papers, full sets, sometimes new old stock, and if they are ready to pay the premium for it, that is the service you should provide as a seller, right?
Yeah.
I don't have it in stock, but I will go out of my way to acquire one for you. Just give me a month. Just give me 2 months,
Mm-hmm.
and just tell me your budget, and I will see if I can find something for you.
100%. 100%. And I think actually it's worth paying a little bit more for. Not even a little bit. Like I think it's worth paying the extra money because you so much more easily you can get it back if something goes wrong.
Right. I'm trying to find how this jeweler
Mm-hmm.
presented um, the the watch, just so you have an idea. Let's see. Oops. Wait. So this was
Wow.
one of the pictures.
Wow.
Right? This is the close up, and then he also had had this. You see,
Wow. That is that is impressive. Impressive.
right? It looks a
Oh
certain
my
way,
god. Yeah.
right?
That is a proper presentation. Jeez.
Say it's a full set is one thing, but
Yeah.
you are also showing something else when you take
Mm.
good pictures,
Mm.
detailed pictures, when you lay it all out in this sort of presentation, and when you add some goodies, that
Mm.
Rolex book costs a like maybe on Amazon, I think it's on a discount and it's like in the high 40s or something.
Yeah.
But you add it to a set, your customer may be willing to part with a couple more $100 than what he had in mind, because again, you are adding value. And at the end of the day, to me, that's what, as a buyer at least, that's what a
Yeah.
full set means. That's what box and papers means. It gives me the peace of mind that if I ever part with this watch, I am actually insuring myself, insuring my money. I can pay 10K now, and next time I sell it, it might have the prices maybe will be actually lower, and I might have to get 8. But if I sell a good example of a Rolex watch down the
Yeah.
road with box and papers, that will always command a premium in whatever market.
Mm.
So that actually gives me the peace of mind for making this investment.
Yeah.
It's not an investment. I'm really buying the watch for myself. But if
Mm.
something happens,
Hey, if something happens, it's good to know that you can get your money back. And I mean that's what I mean. These are expensive, very expensive toys that we don't really need, but they do bring pleasure in life, and it's just so much safer to buy when you know you can get the money. By the way, that GB Wool versus Tim's Panerai listing, exactly, man.
I haven't actually seen your actual listing. I've seen you showing the watch.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't have no box, no papers. Actually, I'm gonna take it to Panerai to get some type of paperwork to make sure that
Right.
it is original. But actually, I mean, look, I improved it a little bit. I added this travel pouch to it, added two
Nice.
straps.
It's a nice case.
Yeah, I mean, we lowered the price to something that's a little bit more fair. It's a beautiful watch. Yeah, it's dinged up a little bit,
Yeah.
but it's a submersible.
I like the orange. Yes.
Orange looks good. The green, this is a quality pouch. Two straps. I mean, look at that. It's cool. It's a cool watch. It's a cool Pam. It's a quintessential Pam. Very iconic.
And yes,
But
orange is a beautiful accent for any diver watch for sure. So that
yeah,
looks good on that strap.
Right? And the box, look at this box. This is a quality box. 5,000. I mean, it's a lot of money. I understand. 5,000. It is a lot.
Mm. And that shade of green, as Rolex fans know,
Rolex.
even
Right?
though
I mean, this
even
is a
though it's
quite a
kind of right. Yeah.
look at this pot. I mean, there's you can see there's a little bed where it sits in.
Yeah,
So
it's nice. It's
when
very
you place it inside, it's just not. I mean, shout out to Jesus. He works at Panerai on Rodeo Drive.
nice.
Guys, if you're in Panerai and you want the brand new Panerai, mention Tim Wright. Go to if you're in L.A. Rodeo Drive. He's a cool. He's actually a best friend of Cars and Chrono.
Oh, nice. I mean,
Yeah.
if I only appreciated Panerai watches a little more, I would have certainly paid him a visit. But I won't just go to waste this time because it's not my thing. But it's good to know, right? If you ever find yourself in Southern California, I'm
Mm-hmm.
sure most people somehow end up on Rodeo Drive. That's not a bad place to visit. Right next to it, there's Grand Seiko.
Mm-hmm.
Um, JLC is actually moving to Rodeo Drive now.
Wow.
And Geary's has both their Rolex and Patek um,
Wow.
branches there on Rodeo Drive as well. The Patek one is usually deserted. They don't have anything in stock.
So there's
Um,
Richard Mille. I think they have Richard Mille there and AP as well.
I think I AP is off Rodeo Drive. You know what they call Via Rodeo. This like
Yeah, yeah. It's across the street from Peter Marco.
that's right.
That little corner, right?
Although I would say Peter Marco is across the street from
Oh,
AP.
yeah.
AP is, it has a little
Yeah.
more legacy and a little more respectability compared to Peter Marco, but
Okay.
I'll leave it at that. Um,
Uh,
the Yes, and also of course, Tiffany's is at the very beginning of the street,
hmm
and they also have absolutely no stock when it comes to Patek.
By the way, when I was there was a guy walking out of the location with a Richard Mille. He had a shopping bag. He bought some RM. So probably they do have it, but it's only for VVVVVIPs. You know how
I'm
it is.
sure. Again, same thing with Tiffany. I know a few years back they did actually have a lot of different watches
Mm,
in the cases, uh, but they were still more desirable models that they kept in the back. And
mm,
I'm sure it's still the same way. They keep supplying to their most reliable and heavy hitting customers. They still
mm.
supply those models, but they don't have a shelf life at this point. They never make it to the showroom at this point,
Yeah.
especially not in Los Angeles. When it comes to Tiffany, I know they just changed into LVMH, so things might be configured in a different way now. But at least in olden times, New York would get its pick first when it came to Pateks,
Yeah.
and then it would be given to other Tiffany branches. So,
All right.
um, but this is still the advantage of being in big cities, right? You're in New York, Tim. I'm in Los Angeles,
Mm,
where we actually have the luxury, we have the privilege of visiting some of these boutiques, and sometimes they have stock. And again, if you're a kind person, if you actually care about the people you're dealing with, if you're friendly to them, you don't have to involve donuts or home baked cookies. Just be a nice person. Remember the name of the person you are dealing with.
mm,
Remember something personal about them. Care about them as human beings, and next time you come, they will reciprocate that favor. I had a friend and still have him as a friend who ran the Patek part of Tiffany's.
mm,
He's not with them anymore, and I never made a purchase through him,
mm-hmm.
but I always stopped by and had conversations with him. I always, I grabbed lunches with him
Mm,
sometimes. Sometimes he paid, sometimes I paid. And once every so often he would take me up to the VIP room and pour me some whiskey, and we would continue the conversation there.
Wow.
It never took
Yeah.
even a woman's 24,
Yeah.
right? From Patek.
Wow.
I never made any purchase through him,
Yeah.
but we were friends, and our friendship was just about talking about watches
Yeah.
and women. But you know how these conversations are. So at the end of the day, really, whether you're dealing with someone or not,
Mm.
uh, you have to present your best self. And
Yeah.
if your best self is an asshole, no one can teach you to be a gentleman. No one can make you into a gentleman. No one can teach you etiquette in terms of set of rules.
Yeah.
But still, you can bring out the best version of yourself. And just because you are involved in a transaction and money is dirty, no one loves it, really, honestly, except for very shallow people. No one has actual emotional attachment to currency, period.
Mm.
So I understand it's hard, but bring out your best self to these situations, and you will see that even the most callous uh, used car salesman will show you a different face.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. 100%.
Oh, thank you, Archive of Sorts. Even the nice words are more than enough. And again,
Mm.
I keep telling this, and I make no secret, right? I do want to reach 1,000. I do want to get monetized. But for now, as long as you like, subscribe, and tell your friends, I'll be more than happy. And if you're feeling extra generous, of course, the Cash App and PayPal is there. So I welcome it. But for any future topics, for for any question you want to ask, um, if you need a recommendation for making your next purchase, just send me an email. At this point, I do it without expecting anything in return. Again, if you want to add something to it, that's fine, but just send me an email. I'll respond to it. And if it's something that I would like to talk about at some length, we'll make a live stream according to your schedule so you can be part of the discussion, and we can hash it out in a way that's helpful to more than the two people involved. And I hope the same for this conversation as well. I've really enjoyed it. I hope Tim did as well.
Of course. I wouldn't be joining if I didn't enjoy it, Lord.
Thank, thank you.
I'm
Uh,
just trying to grow the community. That's what I like to do. Help people
that's
out when they first start.
Look.
It's
I mean, as long as we realize that it's not a zero sum game,
no,
and of course, everyone is trying to get a bigger slice of the pie, but there are ways of enlarging that pie, uh,
100%.
and it has to go. Uh, I love my share of drama, right? I will never, and I will, I'll probably, maybe I'll give it about 2 days, 2 weeks time. I'll probably pick another fight with you.
Of
Um,
course. Of course. It
but
wouldn't be it wouldn't be fun without a
it
bit of
can't
drama.
be
And
only
people
that,
come for the watch talk, but they stay for the drama.
right? It can't be more than it can't be just drama. It can't
Yeah,
be
yeah.
beef.
It wears you out, you know, it wears you out. It's really hard. It's really hard
Night,
emotionally.
night, night is here, so I will show
Mm.
him the book that he recommended me. And guys, in less than 3 hours, I will have another stream, President's Day special, and we'll be talking about day dates, mostly with the help of this book,
Hmm.
but also with looking at some
Oh.
great examples from this book, Rolex 3621 watches, where you
Whoa.
have an original factory dial, 4-digit day date with the Tiffany color. So um, let's keep that in mind. If you didn't have time to watch this, you're always free to rewind and watch the recording later. And same goes with the President's Day special coming up. In either case, I thank you, Tim,
No
for
problem.
joining the live stream. I thank everyone for spending even a couple of minutes in the chat. Thank you so much.
Great stream, Lord.
Thank you. Thank you. Great participation. Thank you. All right. I'm ending the broadcast here.
Bye,
Love you
guys.
guys. Like, subscribe, and tell all your friends. Thank you, Night Diver, Aussie Expat, Jay, Jay Sykes, Pavel, Archive of Swords, Flood, GB Vol, Diego, and I just want to make sure that I'm not missing anyone. Of course, Tim Wright, Ian Nicholson,
And let's not forget the Wired King. Huge
Mathis,
shout out.
Wired King. Honestly, except for what you did.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
thank you guys. I appreciate
Behave,
it.
behave. Nothing wrong with being spicy.